When we first started out, hips were the major operation we did in the 80s. I mean, that was all hips, because knees by then were primitive, they weren't well designed, et cetera, et cetera. So hips have been around a long time. It's predictable to put in a hip right now and knowing fully well you can tell that patient this hip should last your lifetime. Almost everybody. That includes 40 and 50-year-olds. Because even if the plastic should wear out, which nowadays it's so good, they may never wear out. They can be replaced with a small operation, maybe an outpatient operation. Wall Street Journal in the late 90s came out with an article saying that total hip replacement was the most successful operation in the history of surgery. Now we know with knees equaling them, we got the two best operations in hip and knee replacement in the history of surgery. It allows people to go back to their normal activities. They don't have to take medication. They're not a burden on society. They can go home. They can go back to working. I mean, these are great operations, and they're minimal to no pain. By and large, wear and tear is the most common type of arthritis. For the people that have rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and these other inflammatory diseases, the rheumatologists now have gotten so good at treating these that the numbers of those are going down rapidly. As our population is aging, we're certainly going to see more of these done, only because if people live longer, then eventually things do wear out. Now, problem is twofold. Problem number one, who's going to do them? Who's going to do these operations? And people like me are a dying breed, because for the first time in a history of fellowships in the United States, for hip and knee fellowships through joint replacement surgeons, they couldn't be filled by Americans. They had to get them from overseas. They had to get Indians and Filipinos to fill the spots because there weren't enough Americans that wanted to do them. Americans, with the cuts that we've had, don't want to go into hip and knee surgery. And in particular, the problem is with females, because medical schools now are shifting towards more females in school than male. And the one thing the females do not like is orthopedics and joint replacement, because it's a physically demanding specialty. So when you put this picture together, we may have a demand for all these things, but the question is, are we going to be able to do all of it? And we're busy because word got out years ago that we were doing things differently. Our patients were returning to activities at a different time frame than other patients. People live long enough, they're going to wear something out, and it's usually a hip or a knee. Hips now are number two, because knees are now replacing them, but it's a predictable operation, 99.5% successful, done in the right hands. That's a win-win.